Hello, hello. So, this pouch may be made already, and I may not have footage of the pattern development and certain other steps. But my goal here is to equip you all with the information needed to make your own pouch similar to this, or just different variations, just something kind of based on this idea. You can use 6 panels instead of 4. You can make 3 panels. That would be interesting. And it's all very easy to do. And for any who are curious, these are the other pouches. I still have one more to make. This one was based off of some pictures that I found. I liked how it looked. That's the bottom line. I liked how it looked, and I said, I want that pouch, and I don't want to pay hundreds of dollars for it. So, you just got to go out and kill a deer, brain tan the hide, and then dye it, and do this. By the end of the day, it's probably no different, really. But here we are. This is for the turtle of the party. And then for the, was it elf or half elf? I don't remember. This was more purse-like, but this was simply based off of, I found a site where some guy was recreating pouches for, the historical reenactment community. And so I took a look at some of those pouches and I said, you know what, I can do something similar to that, easy. And dug into the brain tan material and did that. A little bit of piping. Honestly, that is just folded over. There's no core to it, no thread or anything in there. Didn't really need it for something this small. For a larger one, maybe you'd want that. And then just some cotton cord, or actually this is intended for, what is this? Crocheting, yeah. But I just wove that into some finger loop braided cord, and then made some little bone dice, drilled a hole into them so they could be beads. These are some coyote teeth that almost made it onto the pouch instead of these deer toes that I carved into beads. One of the guys in the D&D group, we always play when we go up to deer camp and hunt. They live in a different state. I have to migrate to them. And he gave me these, and he said, here, and do some casting or something, do whatever. And I'm not going to say no to coyote teeth, but they don't really lend themselves very well to casting, right? So if you just imagine this in metal, it's not going to be very clear what it is. It's just going to look like a metallic banana, and it doesn't really mean anything to anybody. But if you drill a hole, you take some silver tubing in this case, and you peen it over so that you make an eyelet. These would make some great beads for a pouch. So like I said, they almost made it onto this pouch, but this pouch is not for him and his character. I'm going to give these back to him. That's what I'm saving them for. These are going to go on his pouch. I still haven't decided exactly what I want to do as far as that design goes, but that's all stuff for another day. Today we're looking at this. So, as far as the pattern goes, I will measure these and put that information in here, but this is the thought process behind it, which is probably more helpful than actually getting specific measurements. Really, you got to look at your pouch and think about what core things about your pouch determine its dimensions. So in this case, it's the faces of the pouch, right? This is going to be your overall size of your pouch. This strip really just determines the depth of your pouch. How deep is it? And so once you get your template for this, it's super easy to cut a rectangle to determine your depth. No big deal. Similar thing with this. What's going to determine the footprint of the pouch? Well, it's going to be this bottom panel. So I determined roughly the size that I wanted the bottom panel to be. And initially, I wasn't thinking about my seam allowances, which was a big mistake. And so I came up with this size. But this is good because this is what matters most in the end. Because what I did was trace that out onto another piece of paper and then give myself the seam allowances. So this is the actual size that I used. But to determine the size, or rather, how wide these panels need to be in order to work with the disc that you create for the bottom. Very simple. One, throw your seam allowances out the window. We are concerning ourselves to start with here with the finished dimensions of the pouch. The seams are on the inside, so seam allowances just out the window for now. We're just thinking of finished dimensions. Easy way to do this with a little bit of math. You just take like a compass or something, draw out whatever size circle you want. The measurement doesn't even have to really matter at that point. So you can take your circle and you're going to measure across it. So just fold it in half and measure your distance. The circumference of a circle is your diameter times pi, 3.14. And that will get you the size you need overall to make a cylinder that will fit your circle. Again, this is minus the seam allowances. We'll go in, we'll add that later, depending on what you're comfortable with, whatever amount of excess you want hanging around inside the bag. You don't want it to be too much, because then you just have all these big flappy things inside the coin pouch, the dice pouch, whatever it is. You don't want it to be too thin, because when you do your stitching, you could tear through, and so there's that issue too. So you just, something around this, like this is pretty good. This will do you. So now that you have calculated how long your panels all lined up, 1, 2, 3, 4 in this case, how much material you need those to be in total on your other piece of paper. You have that rectangle cut out. So I don't know if this is perfectly accurate here, because I have butchered these patterns a couple of times in getting to my final panel size. But for the sake of this, let's just say this is the correct size overall for our base of our pouch. You just take your line here and go into your calculator and divide it up into however many panels you want. In this case, 4, it could be 3, it could be 6, it could be 8 if you're feeling adventurous. Now that you have your final panel size, just go ahead and reduce this down to an individual panel. Now that you've divided your overall rectangle up into whatever those panel sizes are that you need. From there, you will just take that rectangle, throw that on another piece of paper, add in your seam allowances. In this case, I just transferred it all onto a fresh piece of paper. That way I'm not just endlessly taping things onto the other things. And that is it. So determine your base, find the diameter, multiply that by pi, transfer that measurement onto a rectangle. That measurement is the length of one of the sides of your rectangle. The other is just going to be your height. However tall you want to make this pouch, you can make it twice as tall if you feel like doing that. And then, like I said, decide your seam allowance and just make that consistent from one piece of the pattern to another piece of the pattern. Otherwise, you're going to end up confusing yourself. I have not mentioned anywhere the thickness of the leather I used. So, this leather is about 1 millimeter. Checking other places, it goes up to about 3 ounces or 1.2 millimeters. This is a very handy tool if you do stuff like I do, where you thin your own leather to some degree and you just play around with stuff like this. It's a pretty penny, but it's fun to use, and it's good stuff to know. The elephant acts similarly. It's actually a bit thicker, clocking in at about 4 ounces or a little over 1.5 millimeters. No, yeah, 1.5 millimeters actually. But it seems to act the same, and I would say that's because of the heavy wrinkling. So all these spots are they're so thin, they're going to bend real easy. All those little crinkles, and so it acts thinner than it really is. But yeah, anything around that thickness will be fine. For these loops, these little retention loops, These, you will want leather to be roughly in the, oh, somewhere in the 6 ounce range would be nice. Um, Maybe just a touch thicker. That looks like 2.5 millimeter or just under it. Um, as I mentioned before, this is a little thin on these sides, but there's a thick spot right here. You can see the color change. And that is close to the thickness that I made these. So I'm going off of that ridge right there. That's what I'm measuring at. And I am getting, as I said, about 6 ounce or 2.5 millimeter. Wouldn't hurt to go just a touch stronger than that